7-year war brings misery to impoverished Yemen and remains the forgotten conflict ever. The government forces liberate Usayran district and advance in Shabwa. In Ma'rib, internally displaced families' suffering continues amid organizations' indifference. Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Rushan Fouad. The U.S. Special Envoy for Yemen, Tim Lenderking, addressed Yemenis on New Year's Eve, stressing that the country needs more from the international community and urging the community leaders to increase life-saving aids.
Assalamu alaikum. While a new year brings hope, it also marks the passing of another year of war in Yemen. Another year that parents face the agony of being unable to buy food for their children. Another year that Yemenis face the threat of shelling, landmines, and airstrikes. Another year that women and girls face rape and sexual torture. Another year with children on the front lines. Yemen needs more from the international community and from its leaders. More life-saving support and economic aid, more accountability for human rights violations committed by the warring parties, more pressure on the parties to stop fighting and to stop seeking ways to benefit from the war and to start resolving differences through negotiation.
Lenderking stressed that his country is committed to bring relief to those affected by the war, calling on all parties to end military activities that will only prolong the suffering of Yemenis.
As we look forward to 2022, the United States is committed to doing more to bring relief and help create space for Yemenis to determine a brighter future for their country. This is not something the United States or any country or any group can do alone. All the warring parties must accept that continuing to fight, whether in Ma'rib or elsewhere, will only bring more suffering and prolong the conflict. The Yemeni parties must reach a political settlement together to end the war. 2022 will undoubtedly bring more challenges for Yemen, but it also brings opportunity. We call on the parties to seize this opportunity to make peace their goal, to ease the suffering of the people of Yemen and allow the country to rebuild.
Despite the enormity of the destruction brought by the 7-year conflict on Yemen, it's referred to as the forgotten war, as one year bleeds into another. The biggest tragedy in recent time remains with no end in sight. The following report has more details.
Years of brutal conflict have brought misery to an already impoverished Yemen. There is no end in sight. By the end of 2021, the United Nations warned recently that 300,000 Yemeni will have died from 7 devastating years of war, in many cases killed by indirect causes such as hunger, and in others by airstrikes or missile bombardments. 70% of fatalities are thought to be children under 5. As 2021 began, there were hopes that Joe Biden's arrival in the White House might bring progress towards peace. His administration quickly announced it was ending all support for offensive operations by the coalition. It also revoked the Trump administration's designation of the Houthi rebels as a terrorist group. But Biden's team seemed to have overestimated its ability to help resolve the crisis. The diplomatic push soon faltered. Meanwhile, a humanitarian catastrophe that the UN has described as the worst in the world is deepening. Just before Christmas, the World Food Programme said that it'd been forced to cut aid due to insufficient funds 3 months after it warned that 16 million Yemenis were marching towards starvation. The UN Special Envoy Hans Grundberg warns that the recent escalation is among the worst in the conflict. Houthi rebels have intensified the offensive on Ma'rib, the last major stronghold of the government that they ousted. Coalition airstrikes on the airport at the capital Sana'a, held by Houthi rebels, halted aid flights this month, although rebels now say they can resume on a temporary basis. With borders and airspace sealed, the world has largely been able to ignore the war's impact on Yemen civilians. But the conflict must not be allowed to slip down the agenda again. Its grim and entrenched nature is not cause to give up on diplomacy, but all the more reason to renew the determined efforts required if Yemenis are to have a real future.
In Shabwa, the governor Awad bin al-Wazir declared a state of emergency and curfew in Bayhan, Usaylan, and Ain. The governor declared the three districts as military operations areas to liberate them from Houthi rebels. He also directed engineering teams to clear out liberated areas in Usaylan from mines. Government forces backed by the Giant Brigades liberated Usaylan district after the fall of important strategic sites that are controlled by the Houthi militia. Field sources reported that forces are close to taking control of Nakub center after liberating Haid bin Aqil and Laghdir. Sources indicated that the artillery targeted Houthi militia with the support of coalition airstrikes. Sources pointed out that militant groups fled towards Bayhan after losing most of their positions. Sources added that taking control of Bin Aqil mountain means complete control of the district. The operation took only a few hours as it was launched in the morning and ended at noon. Still in Shabwa, the Giants Forces commander Abdulrahman al-Maharrami announced the success of the first phase to liberate and clear Usaylan from Houthis. The spokesperson of Giants Forces said that this operation comes to liberate all districts of Shabwa that are under the control of the Houthi rebels. Turning to Ma'rib, government forces backed by tribes recaptured several sites in the southern fronts. Sources reported that Houthi rebels suffered heavy losses during violent battles that ended with recapturing several sites. Earlier, the coalition announced the destruction of 11 military vehicles and the killing of more than 100 Houthi terrorist militias in 19 air operations. In Hajjah, government forces defeated Houthi militia and inflicted heavy losses among them. Sources said the artillery targeted movements of Houthi militia and snipers stationed in the city of Harad. In Abs, forces targeted gatherings of the militia in Wadi al-Najba, and many of them were killed and wounded. To that end, government forces thwarted rebel militia infiltration attempts in Safra district of Sada. Military source reported that the forces thwarted Houthis' attempts to infiltrate Ras Shajja military site, killing and injuring a number of militants. Sources added that reinforcements were targeted by the artillery. In Al-Bayda, Houthi rebels incurred heavy losses after being targeted with coalition airstrikes in Al-Suma'a district. Local sources said that the coalition targeted Houthi militia checkpoints that are famously used to blackmail travelers and citizens. The militia turned most of the checkpoints in Al-Bayda governorate into points of extortion, abuse, and kidnapping of citizens and travelers. In Taiz, the Houthis targeted residential neighborhoods in the city with mortar shells. Local sources reported that the Houthi militia stations in Sofitel bombed the eastern neighborhoods of the city of Taiz with about 10 shells. They added that the bombing caused panic and fear among the citizens, although it did not leave any casualties. The International Organization for Migration announced that about 130,000 migrants in Yemen are in need of humanitarian assistance. The organization said that it provides healthcare, protection services, and life-supporting assistance to vulnerable migrants. It added that it was thanks to the support of the United States, Germany, and the European Union. Yemen is a destination for the influx of migrants from the countries of the Horn of Africa and from there to Saudi Arabia on difficult journeys. During they face many difficulties. The suffering caused by displacement seems to see no end. Victims are subjected to Houthi missiles, cold weather, and sometimes unfortunate electric shapes. It all began when a fire broke at one displaced people camp in Ma'rib and killed 3 children and injured others. More details about this is in the following report.
Here lies the largest displacement camp in Ma'rib, amassing 75,000 displaced people, each shouldering their own tragic tale. One such tale belongs to the family of Haj Amin al-Dahmasi, who lost 3 of his children as a result of an electrical short circuit. 6 children were injured in the incident along with Amin and his wife.
In the morning, during the dawn prayer, the owner of the house went out to pray and an electrical fault occurred in the house. The house was burned while the family was sleeping in the second room, and they did not know that their father was not in the house. The fire broke out to the second room, and there was only one exit through the first room. Family was unable to get out, and they burned inside. The father, while rescuing them, got into the middle of the fire, and he was one of the wounded. So far, casualties are 3 deaths and 3 wounded. They are in the hospital, and the first TV that has reached so far is Yemen Today. Organizations came, they took pictures and walked, and there was no response.
Amin's family strove to make a living, to gather their scattered pieces like other families inside the camp. The electricity network's poor planning stifled the family's dreams from right under their grasp. This was not the first fire that occurred in the Al-Jufaina camp, as the fire consumed many of the tents of the displaced in advance. However, alternative solutions remain absent on the part of the humanitarian and relief organizations towards the lives of the displaced.
This family was not the first family that was damaged by the fires in the camp, as there were many fires. Organizations haven't responded, and they do not have any shelter assistance. We call for organizations to find other alternatives to mitigate the consequences of fires and to provide extinguishers.
The destructive war produces catastrophic consequences for the lives of the displaced, throwing them in a continuous battle to search for safety and stability. Dozens of families pay the toll of negligence, their souls wavering under the threat of death and destruction. Moments ago, the family lived in peace. Fire kills 3 children and injures 3 others. This was not the first incident that happened in the largest displacement camp, and should not want to be the last.
Coming next. Yemen Today TV celebrates 10th anniversary and a decade of news coverage breakthroughs.
اضطرينا نحن نغادر من ذي ونزحنا.
الله يستنقذكم يا محويتني لا الله يستنقذ.
Welcome back. January 1st, 2012 marked the kick of Yemen Today TV. The channel's popularity soon spread like a forest fire inside and outside of the country. The TV today celebrates a decade of media distinction, especially with regards to news coverage. The following report has more details.
I'd like to give a warm welcome to everyone attending this celebration for Yemen Today 10th anniversary.
Yemen Today TV celebrated 10 years after it came out to its audience with its great news to all political spectrums. The channel's celebration of its 10th anniversary was held in the Egyptian capital Cairo, and it was attended by the Yemeni ambassador to Egypt, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Marim, and board bases of politicians of various orientations and spectra.
Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a happy occasion to celebrate the Yemen Today TV 10th anniversary. I'd like to congratulate the staff of this TV, and it's a nice chance to meet all these people in such a gathering.
The celebration was attended by a large number of Yemeni journalists of various orientations, and the diversity of their visual, audio, and print media, and electronic journalism and political analysts, university doctors and researchers in Yemeni affairs participated, whose presence was a great reinforcement to prove the channel's approach in presenting a clear media message and a policy based on vertical rules that depend on speaking with knowledge and insight. The Egyptian diplomacy, represented by the Dean of Arab Diplomats and the former ambassador of the Arab Republic of Egypt in Yemen, participated in this celebration, and the Republic of Egypt had a key participation through its foreign media side, represented by the Information Authority and the Egyptian Press Center, a great role in organizing and creating the atmosphere to revive the celebration, which was attended by agencies, media centers, Egyptian journalists, the finest technical caterers specialized in television and radio work, engineers of satellite broadcasting and communications, and managements of media institutions. Yemen Today TV will remain committed to deliver objective and professional media content, as was charted by its founder, the late President Ali Abdullah Saleh.
In Aden, the Yemeni Riyal value dropped against foreign currencies, exceeding 1,000 riyals after witnessing a great improvement during the past days. Observers confirmed that the decline in the price of the national currency is a trap that exchange companies deliberately set up for citizens to tempt them to sell their hard currencies before the arrival of the expected financial deposit to the central bank. Economists expressed that the sudden decline of the foreign currency rate against the riyal is a puzzling matter. Experts called on the central bank to limit the role of exchange companies in the national economy and to restore the main role of banks, especially since exchange companies are trying to exploit the huge catch in their position to transform into banks, although it is unable to fulfill its obligations to its consumers. In Aden, the sixth batch of oil grant provided by Saudi Arabia arrived to the oil port. The Saudi oil derivatives grant comes as an extension to the support to operate power stations, improve services for all vital sectors, reduce frequent power cuts, and improve the daily living of Yemeni citizens. Turning to Al Bayda, Houth has imposed huge sums of money on fertilizer traders under several pretexts. Local sources said that Houthi militia carried out a campaign of raids on shops selling agricultural fertilizers and imposed on them the payment of large sums of money. The sources indicated that the militia threatened to permanently close the fertilizer shops and loot all their content unless they pay the owed amount. After years of absence, coffee has again grown in Yafa city. A local and state initiative has launched a coffee growing campaign. Farmers have been provided with the necessary equipment to grow the crop. Such efforts can be the first blocks to refresh coffee growing nationwide. The following report has more details.
Since ancient times, Yemeni coffee has gained a wide local and international fame, as it was called Mocha Cafe in reference to the historical port of Mecca, through which this crop was exported. On the other hand, Yafa was famous for being one of the Yemeni cities famous for the cultivation of young coffee with high characteristics and wonderful quality.
We see coffee as an important product and many families depend on it. Producing Yafa coffee became the most important in the world, and it also has a heavy demand.
Based on the importance of coffee cultivation in Yemen in general and Yafa in particular, as it's one of the agriculture cash crops that feed the national economy and contribute to the income of many families, the Yafa Foundation for Development and the Yafa Agriculture Group organized a special workshop to announce the results of the field survey of coffee trees in the districts of Yafa and to see the most important requirements.
Coffee in Yemen is very high value and a great economic return, and we rely on it a lot in the country to support the national economy. The Ministry of Agriculture provides 5 fields that will be implemented. We call on international organizations and donors to support this crop.
Very important statistics and indicators related to the cultivation and development of young coffee are what were highlighted by these field results.
The requirements are water tanks in every small field, provided with community integration with government support, so that we can maintain the facility and thus benefit the farmer and the country from the production of this crop. Also providing irrigation networks to rationalize the use of water, which is the main objective for the development of the crop.
Providing the requirements of coffee cultivation and taking care of its crop requires an official effort to give this crop a great priority towards implementing service projects and introducing modern techniques in its cultivation while working to encourage investment and activate agriculture research so that the Yemeni coffee returns to its fame, quality, and presence that has been known and different since ancient times.
Amid warnings from the outbreak of the fourth wave of COVID-19, the National Committee Against Coronavirus recorded 1 case of the pandemic in Taiz. Also, committee officials said 2 recovered cases were recorded and no deaths. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 10,127, including 1,984 deaths and 7,024 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. 7-year war brings misery to impoverished Yemen and remains the forgotten conflict war. The government forces liberate Usaylan district and advance in Shabwa. In Ma'rib, internally displaced families suffering continues amid organizations' indifference. This is the end of the news. For more, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Yemen Today English. This was Rushan Fuad. Thank you for watching.